We're recording. Yay. Uh, who am I? Kate Mulafalt.
Where am I?
Oh my God. Welcome to Irish Granny. Helen, welcome to Denise Siegel. Denise?
Is that my name? Oh my gosh. Yeah.
I know. I'm a wreck. It's always a great pleasure to spend some time talking to you. I have to make it like a business thing for us to actually have time to talk. It's insanity, right?
I know. Well, yeah, but that's good. It's good that we're both busy. It's
discipline, good. My least favorite word. So well, it's right up there with diet and exercise. The three evils of life. So, what are we going to chat about today?
Well, we were talking about Biden, right? So he's diagnosed. We're talking about how a couple of things. When in my astrology group, but he was actually elected. When he was elected, he was elected on an eclipse. The first election was on an eclipse. And I remember it was a lunar eclipse. The last time that happened was when FDR was first elected. And it seemed like an omen that, he might not live past the first term. And I was saying
through his last term.
He wouldn't make through his second term. Yeah. And I was speculating that he would, die in office if he won a second term. And I thought if he would have stayed in the, if he was he could have possibly won if he hadn't gotten sick, but it seems like maybe he was sick already when he went into the debate, which if he was, like FDR was sick, right, when he was into a third term, but he hid it. He stayed hidden. And they were hiding Biden, and they should have just continued to hide him. They could have just made up a reason like, oh, well, we can't do the debate because Trump is, he's just going to throw crazy stuff out there and he's not a good debater. They could have made up an excuse. I don't think Trump wanted to do a debate, so they could have just backed out of that. And we would never have known. He would have probably been elected and he would have probably died in office. And then we would have gotten Kamala. That's what I thought would have happened. But when I saw that debate, I was like, oh no, he can't win now. There's no way he's going to win. He blew it.
Yeah. Yeah, and I'm sad to say that already the malicious sort of rhetoric is being spun. I mean, the man is in his well, I told you I was looking something up because I wanted to be accurate. And,
okay.
Do you know who Uday and Qusay, Saddam Hussein's sons?
Yes.
Don Jr. and Eric Uday.
Yes.
And
Right. Well, that's true.
Just the grifters extraordinaire, the generational, the inheritors of the cult-like grift. What it's all about.
Right.
And you were saying that they've already come out and said some pretty
nasty stuff. Yeah. I mean, I don't remember. I tried. I mean, it
doesn't bear repeating. Yeah,
it doesn't bear even. I just deleted it from my hard drive immediately because it was so stupid. But yeah, it was some kind of nasty joke about him being sick, and it was really just gross and disgusting. Like those two creeps. I mean, really, I don't know if it's fair to say Eric because Eric doesn't really do anything. Eric just kind of stays in the background. I don't really know much about him, but Don Jr. is a coke snorting idiot. He really is. He's just a big old druggy dipshit and takes right after daddy. I don't know that he was always like that. It's sad, I think, if he, he's obviously conformed to get his father's love. Because I've heard stories about him when he was in college. Like a roommate of his said that, Donald Trump was really nasty to him, really mean.
Oh. When they were little children, he used to make them fight each other on the floor in front of him and berate them.
That sounds like my mom. That's the kind of stuff my mom would do. My mom is, she used to come into my room every night drunk and like, I'm going to fight you, you pussy. And I was like, I'm not going to fight you, you crazy person. Yes. It's like, I'm not fighting you, okay? And I would just hold her back. I'm like, I could kill you if I wanted to. Like, I'm a lot stronger than you. I would just kind of hold her back and like not hit her. But she kind of tried to hit me. And beat me up and stuff. And I'd be like, no, I'm not doing that. What do you think? You're some kind of saint? Yeah, she's psycho. But she's like, she's just has the same pathology as Trump. She is exactly.
That was the most beautiful segue I've ever heard. Thank you. I was telling Denise that I've been watching this regular YouTube channel called Shrinking Trump. And it's two psychiatrists. One is Dr. John Gardner. The other one, I'm terrible. I don't remember his name. But I watched Gardner being interviewed for almost 2 hours last night on Anthony Davis's Midas Touch News channel. Mm-hmm. Every weekend he does a really in-depth interview, and it's very good. And they had a long talk about what motivates Trump, what makes him tick. And they were talking quite a bit about Eric Fromm. And, you know, I remember studying Eric Fromm in school, and that's all I remember. You know, I don't.
Yeah, I remember his name. I remember he's a psychologist, or he was. But I don't know.
Well, guess what?
Was he a developmental psychologist, or I can't remember. Ooh, something fell over.
I don't know. Somebody doesn't like Eric Fromm. He was a sociologist. And
a sociologist. Okay.
Left. I believe Germany. I suppose it could have been Austria. He left that area in the early 30s, and became a professor. And he was a student when he left. Became a professor, but he defined malignant narcissism. He was the first one to come up with this whole idea of malignant narcissism. So I'm gonna just name a couple of traits, and you're gonna try to imagine if you know anybody at all, or if you're aware of anybody at all who's got these traits. Okay. So malignant narcissism is from 1964. He defined it as the quintessence of evil.
Oh, wow.
They have a deep destructive pathology, characterized by enormous self-centeredness, sadism and cruelty, paranoia, and antisocial behavior, essentially narcissistic personality disorder. So here are some of the how that shows up. Grandiosity, fantasies of unlimited success, power, and brilliance, a sense of being unique, the need for excessive admiration, a sense of entitlement, interpersonal exploitativeness, no empathy, prominent envy.
Yes.
They are fragile in real life. Now that's how it manifests, but what's beneath that? They're fragile, vulnerable to shaming, sensitive to criticism. They have mood swings defined by irritability and rage.
It sounds like my mom.
This
sounds just like my mom.
Just like her.
Exactly like her. Yeah.
Intense need for recognition, deeply envious of people with meaningful lives, a shallow intellect, and they only work to gain admiration.
Yeah, except for my mom was very intelligent. My mom was very bright.
Well, these are all potential features, and you don't need to have all of them to qualify.
Right.
Yeah.
My mom was actually really smart in her own way, and has a strangely kind of because she's Eastern European and grew up. Her grandmother was an herbalist and a psychic, and my grandmother was like that too. So she was sort of steeped in a sort of mystical side.
Oh, wouldn't her mother be your grandmother?
No, my mother's grandmother.
Oh,
so her grandmother. So my great grandmother and grandmother. My great grandmother was kind of very mystical and had was an herbalist. I didn't know her, but I heard stories about her, and she grew up with the Eastern European sort of. They're very Russians. I mean, she's not Russian. They were Czech and Hungarian, but they were very mystical people. Like everything was a sign, and they're very psychic. My grandma used to say they were part gypsy, meaning they were psychic. That was her way of saying that. A lot of weird paranormal experiences in the family. So she had that other weird side. So that was always confusing about her. Like, how could you be like that and then also be this crazy narcissistic psychopath? So, yeah, so she's a little different, but other than that, her personality is exactly like Trump, except for that she would flip into this, family thing, that she would go into like a mystical thing, whereas Trump doesn't have that at all. He seems completely devoid of any kind of spirituality
No
whatsoever.
insight. Yeah, no
No,
intuitive
none.
insight
Yeah.
at all. Not a drop. So I've been worried for a long time. This is one of the things that kind of eats at me. When I first heard these things being verbalized, my alarms went off. He talks a lot about revenge, vengeance
Yes.
against people in the Justice Department, politicians who have spoken out about him, journalists, students who
Musicians.
protested,
Right.
musicians. And
Right.
so I wanted to just read for the people who haven't heard this. It's not very long, but it's portions of a statement that Bruce Springsteen made at a concert the other night in Manchester, England. He's on a concert tour called Land of Hopes and Dreams.
Right.
And I just want to preface this by saying I don't like his music. So
I'm not a fan either.
No, not a fangirl, but I was so impressed by what he said.
Yeah.
So let's let people hear that, and then I'm going to ask you, what do you think about this?
Okay.
So he said, and this is all quotes and paraphrasing of quotes, things are happening right now that are altering the very nature of our country's democracy, and they're too important to ignore. He said Trump warned him. He didn't say this, but I'm saying Trump warned him to keep his mouth shut. Trump called him an obnoxious jerk. A dried out prune of a rocker that he says we'll see how it goes for him when he gets back to the country.
Right. I heard that. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So what Springsteen said is they're persecuting people for their rights to free speech. He talked about defunding universities, rolling back civil rights legislation, siding with dictators against those who are struggling for their freedoms. Quote, in my home, they're persecuting people for their right to free speech and voicing their dissent. The richest men are taking satisfaction in abandoning the world's poorest children to sickness and death. They're taking sadistic pleasure in the pain that they inflict on loyal American workers. They're removing residents off American streets without due process of law and deploying them to foreign detention centers as prisoners. The majority of our elected representatives have utterly failed to protect the American people from the abuses of an unjust, unfit president and a rogue government. They have no concern or idea of what it means to be deeply American. The America that I have sung to you about for 50 years is real. Regardless of its faults, it's a great country with a great people, and we will survive this moment. I have hope because I believe in the truth of what the great American writer James Baldwin said. Quote, in this world, there isn't as much humanity as one would like, but there's enough. So what do you think about that?
I think he's right. I mean, I think he's right in that obviously everything he said about what's happening here is absolutely true. I mean, I was just talking to my husband about this. It's like Democrats, and I know that there is like this. I have a friend who I said this to about 6 months ago, who said very ridiculously, I go, well, Democrats are part of this problem. They're not really meeting the moment. They're not standing up. They need to do something. They're not really a good resistance party. They need to they're part of the problem. I'm not saying that they're evil like the Republicans are, but they're not really pushing back.
Right.
And they're not responding. And she goes, well, just find another party then. And I was like, okay.
Oh, God.
I'm like, so if you're that dug into your identity as Team Blue, and your identity as Team Red, then how are we going to find the problems? How can we be really objective about what's happening if all your natural response is just to kind of not want to look at it? And to me, that was indicative of a lot of things I've seen in the Democratic Party too. For example, back when Bernie was running, I had other friends who on Facebook I mean, I'm a democratic socialist. That's what I think is the best human
Yeah, I agree.
system that you can have. I mean, it's not perfect, but it's the best we can do under the circumstances. It accounts for people to be greedy and allows them to make lots of money. And for people who are dysfunctional for whatever reason, they had a terrible childhood, or they had, they were, they don't have
too many football injuries,
or they had some kind of car accident, or they just have a bad, they just were born in an unfortunate circumstance where they just don't have the ability to take care of themselves. And there are lots of people like that you can take care of them and make them okay, and sort of allow those people to have dignity and find, and have the basics met. And if they can do some work here and there, they can. If not, they can't. And people can still make tons of money, and it still encourages capitalism and people and competition and trying to, go higher up on the chain or whatever. But it also includes people that can't do that. I think it's the best system there is. It's maybe, again, not perfect, but it is much more in alignment with the way people used to live in tribal societies, right? Where tribes are functionally communist states. You know what I'm saying? People share everything, and there's a leader, there's a pecking order, but there's nobody in the tribe that's completely abandoned unless they are like a psychopath, and they're usually kind of kicked out.
Right. If they're a threat to the cohesion of the community, then they're eliminated. And, if you've ever worked with people who have psychological issues or addiction issues, or they're born with this strain of criminality or whatever, just the people who are really struggling for whatever reason. I've had people close to me say, well, they should just pull themselves up by their bootstraps.
Yes. Yeah. That's
some
dumb.
People can't.
Most people can't. Those people that you see on the streets begging for money, they can't do that. There's many reasons they can't do that. They may have been born in poverty. They might have mental health issues on top of that. They might have drug addiction problems as a result of their mental health issues. And I remember there was a period in, I don't know, the 90s and the 80s it started, and it got worse in the 90s for a while, where people were really like, well, I'm not going to give money to homeless people because they're just drug addicts. Or it's like, they're just going to buy drugs with the money. It's like, you know what? These people the reason there's all these homeless people is because Reagan cut all the funding for mental health, and they were thrown out onto the streets, and they're totally dysfunctional people who cannot survive in that way.
And it's really difficult to deal with some of them because they present as pretty normal, reasonable people. But no matter what help you give them, they sabotage it.
Sure.
And you get frustrated. You get to the point where you want to throw up your hands and say, forget it. But there's no system in place to catch them.
Well, that's what there used to be, a system in place. And it wasn't perfect and it wasn't great, but at least there was something. It could have been built on and fixed. But if you go to, for example, I've done a lot of traveling all through Europe, a lot of European traveling because of, going on tour with my husband sometimes. And I was in Norway, walking around a city in Norway. I can't remember which one it was. Or maybe it was Sweden, Stockholm. It doesn't matter. They're basically the same. They're basically the same place.
Well, don't say that to a Norwegian or a
Well, I mean, in terms of their government. Not in terms of, they have their own cultural differences, but they are basically very similar structures in terms of the government and how they deal with things. They're democratic socialists. And I was walking around and I saw this homeless. I had never seen a homeless person there before. When you go to one of these Scandinavian countries, everybody is in brand new clothes. They look very well kept. Everybody looks like they're at least middle class or more. They all drive around brand new cars. They have a very extremely high standard of living. They have free education. They have free healthcare, and there's studies that show they're the happiest people on the planet. And that's because they don't have a lot of stress. They get 8 weeks of vacation every year that's paid for. They have maternity leave.
Over a year of paid
2 years
maternity leave
for both men and women.
Yeah, each parent. Yeah.
So you could be the first 2 years, mom could take off. The second 2 years, the dad could take off. So the young developing child has a parent with them and then they have daycare in their work so they can bring their kids to. I mean, the whole system is set up to be supportive of the people, and it works really well, and people are very happy there. And so I'd been there many, many times to Scandinavia because my husband's really popular in Scandinavian countries for whatever reason. And so I was walking around, like I said, I think it was Stockholm, I think it was Stockholm actually. And so it was Sweden. And all of a sudden I see this homeless woman who, even a homeless person there is different. She was just obviously kind of a mad woman. She was talking to herself and like kind of out of it and everything. And I thought, oh, I didn't even know there were homeless people. And then I saw this lady with a red cross standing in the square trying to talk to her. So they not only had a system in play for people, so so if you needed immediate mental health care and you were kind of like losing your mind, you could go. You're having a crisis. You could just go up to this lady and talk to her. And she was doing outreach for people that were kind of losing touch with reality. And she was like walking around looking for people. That's how much they take care of people there. And so you don't really see homeless people. You don't see people who are crazy. You don't see a lot of crime there. It's very clean, and everything is really well taken care of. They pay a lot of taxes for the rich people, but there's still some of the wealthiest. I mean, the guy who developed IKEA lives in a Scandinavian country, and he's wealthy. I mean, he may not be a, like crazy billionaire, but he's probably a billionaire, but it's just like, why these people who have so much fucking money, why they have to like stick it to people who don't and treat people like that, and why they feel like they have to. It's not even about money. It's some kind of psychological problem. And I wish somebody would study the pathology of people who have that kind of level of greed and sadism, because it's something completely else.
Well, it's malignant narcissism. You don't get that wealthy without being willing to walk over other people.
Oh yeah.
A lack of empathy,
absolutely.
Taking pleasure in other people's pain. Those are, it's a continuum, and those are characteristics of malignant narcissism. It's a pathology. You're absolutely right. And what kind of deep-seated ingrained insecurity do you have to have where a couple of $1 billion just aren't quite enough? That's so weird.
I don't understand it. I don't get it. I mean, there's so much money that these people have that they will never be able to spend it in their lifetime. I mean, they just couldn't even spend it. Their money is making so much money every day on itself. And even if they just lived out the interest, they wouldn't be able to spend all that in a year, really.
Well, just as their need for that grasping and the need for always having the most, being the best, being the greatest, right, getting the attention. That's one form of pathology. And on the opposite end, the people that need help, like that woman in the street, there have been places where they've put together apartment buildings and provided social services for people, and they're destroying the apartment that they've been put into, and they're not abiding by the rules, like fighting and drinking and drugs and stuff. And so they give up on them. But the thing is, we do not dedicate enough of our money and social services to continue those sorts of things. You don't give up the minute it gets hard. You provide more supervision and more control,
more support,
more medical care.
Right.
And we are not.
No, that's what they did. That's what they do in Scandinavian countries, and it works. And I think it's probably true in Portugal too. I mean, I haven't been to Portugal, but I think they have similar kind of way of dealing with it.
I don't know.
But Scandinavian countries, and these are the safest countries in the world. They have very little crime. They have the highest happiness indicators. People are happy there.
Finland, and
Finland's the same way. Yeah.
And they came out with this really unique solution.
I've been there.
I love this solution to homelessness. Provide a roof over your head.
Exactly.
Instead of putting caveats, we'll give you a place when you're no longer on drugs. We'll give you a place when you have a job. We'll give you, blah, blah, blah. Give them a place and provide support. And that tends
right. That's the only way it's going to work. People who are that out of sorts, that they're doing drugs and that just like they're that screwed up, they need to have that part first, food and shelter. Then you can work on their mental health. You can maybe get them off of drugs, get them retrained to do something and feel a sense of accomplishment. But you have to do it in stages, and you can't do it putting pressure. You have to do that part first before you get this piece. No, that's
not how
that's not going to work. And people, I think Republicans know that. They just want to punish people for
sadism. That's the other
sadistic.
side of the continuum, that malignant narcissism, that pleasure in other people's pain. But to go back to the whole topic of revenge and vengeance, that's part of it too. And I'm very concerned that we're heading down a road. So Eric Fromm, who defined all of this, talked about this being a type of person, that this is not unique. Hitler was not unique.
No.
And given the opportunity, this type of person will grasp on to the reins of power and do the destructive things that Hitler did. And in this conversation with Anthony Davis, they were discussing the fact that Hitler didn't start out building a concentration camp day one.
No.
He got into power by putting a wedge into the government with very canny, very fox-like, but he took advantage of economic problems, interest rates, inflation. And once he had a little grasp of power, then he went a little farther. And he started chipping away at the legislature and chipping away.
Right. That's right.
Sound familiar? Chipping away at the judiciary, and then silencing opposition in the press, and making illegal public protest and dissent,
right?
And then arresting college professors, shutting down programs in colleges.
Right. I mean, Trump that's what all of his wives say, is that he kept all the speeches of Hitler on his bed table and read them every night before he went to bed.
And it took him about 8 to 10 years to get to the point where, okay, we've rounded up all these undesirables of whatever sort, and we want to ship them back to where they came from. This should sound familiar.
Right.
And nobody will take them. And that was the problem for which they designed the final solution, which was, nobody will take them. We've got all these people. What are we going to do with them in detention? That's what they did with them. And I think, yes, they're not identical today, but we're getting there very quickly. And it's terrifying because there's nothing that will constrain this man. And he has surrounded himself with sycophants just like Hitler did.
Yep. Very true. The one difference I can see between the two, and this is a big one, is Hitler was younger and probably more ambitious and probably more had an actual ideological kind of framework.
Yeah.
Trump is just like a Pac-Man, basically. That game Pac-Man that goes around eating all the things. It's just, what can I get? What can I get? What can I get? I need more. I need more. I need more. I need more stuff. I need more. And it's sort of his Achilles heel, I think, in a lot of ways, that he can be easily bribed and manipulated by other people. Whereas I don't think Hitler was like that. I don't think Hitler was easily taken in by that kind of thing.
Yes, but Trump has something that Hitler didn't have. He has Stephen Miller.
Well,
but like an external addition to the malignant narcissism that provides.
But Hitler had Goebbels and a lot of evil people around him.
Goebbels was like Trump. He was all about self-indulgence and hedonism. He was so busy making himself comic opera uniforms and stealing art. He was hardly ever in Berlin. He was off.
But there were others like Himmler, Goebbels.
Goering,
Himmler, Goebbels. I mean, there were a lot of really, really harsh, evil people around Hitler and were totally insane. Yeah. So, I mean, Stephen Miller, I did, somebody asked me to do a reading about it on the live stream. And what it looked like with Stephen Miller was that he is listened to when it's convenient. And if people push back on Trump, because Trump doesn't want to be disliked and doesn't want people to give him any, he likes, that's the difference between Hitler and Trump too, is Trump is very needy of love and attention, and that's another Achilles heel that can be exploited for people.
Well, we all saw what went on in the Middle East this week.
Exactly. He's like a magpie, you shine a little dangly shiny object, and he's like, and he forgets everything else.
What do you think? We were talking about this earlier this morning. What did they offer him? What's going on there? What's the deal that was cooked behind the scenes? Because that's what went on. Mohammed bin Salman doesn't just make nice with people. His nickname is Bonesaw,
Right. No, I know. Yeah. Well, yeah, I think, somebody asked me about that with the cards, and I was like, it looked like somebody said, well, were there other things going on? I'm like, yeah, it looks like there were lots of money that was, exchanged somehow. Maybe it was deals with the kids, and their company. I don't know.
They gave him a big chunk of land for a golf course.
And also so they could build a Trump, whatever. They also did some kind of deal where he could build one of his Trump things in
failing casinos in Gaza on the beach. Yeah.
Right. So there's that. And obviously the $400 billion plane, which, just shows you how unintelligent he is, because Hitler would never take a plane like that. Hitler would go, he was paranoid enough to go, well, they could easily backdoor into the piloting system, and they could crash my plane,
or listen to every single thing.
But that he doesn't care about that. That's the thing people keep saying, but why would he care about that? He had stacks of, really, really secret information sitting by the toilet in Mar-a-Lago. No, other people care, but he doesn't care about what's good for other people. He only cares about what's good for himself. So from his perspective, you would think, me want to live, me want to enjoy all these fancy things. It's like, I'm putting my life in danger by taking this gift. That's what you would think.
Does this ring a bell? This comes to my mind. I still believe that there's something big that's been cooked up, and now I sound paranoid, but this comes to mind. In his first administration, there was a plan being worked on called the Mideast Marshall Plan. And it involved, now it's been a while, so I could have a little bit of it wrong, but essentially it involved Israel, Saudi Arabia, the United States, I forget who, Russia. So the US was going to provide the technology, the science, the brains. Saudi Arabia was going to bankroll it. Russia was going to provide the muscle, the security and the muscle. And at that point, Eric, Betsy DeVos's brother, Eric
Prince
got involved and said, well, why not use my private militia? So that was a debate that held things up. And Israel, I think, was providing land, but the goal was nuclear power. It was an agreement. This is the Mideast Marshall Plan. You can look it up. And it just sort of seemed to disappear. And I wonder, did it really?
Yeah, I don't know. I've never heard of it, but there was so much going on during his first administration too. I didn't know everything what he was doing. I don't know. I have a feeling though. Obviously, I think there's a lot of strange things going on here. Number one, isn't there a fatwa against his life? Is it from Saudi Arabia or Iran or one of those Middle Eastern countries is trying
is there?
Yeah, I should look it up. I can't remember which. I think maybe it's Iran, where they said they were going to wait for him to become president before they try to kill him. It'd be easier to do.
I didn't know that. Oh God, that's something new to worry about. Thanks.
Well, why is that? But I guess we could worry about.
Well, because it's destabilizing the globe. The whole globe is.
That's true.
Look at what happened between India and Pakistan. That's no coincidence that happened as the United States becomes.
Yeah, here it is. Iranian. It's an Iranian assassination plot against Trump.
Oh, great.
Yes.
Darn.
Yeah. So Iran. So isn't Iran? Aren't they allies with Qatar?
Well, I don't know, but I do know that they are very much pro
I'll find out.
Not Hamas. Who's the other group? Hezbollah. I think they train those guys.
Yes, right.
Yeah. So
that's
I guess, potatoes. Hezbollah, Hamas. There's just a lot of sort of rogue groups that are powerful and have access to resources and have big countries supporting them, either overtly or sub rosa, under the table.
They are allies. Qatar and Iran are allies.
They are. Oh.
They're close. They share close ties and have maintained cordial relations for many years. Both countries are members of the non-aligned movement and organization of the Islamic Conference. Their relationship is also strengthened by strong economic ties, particularly in oil and gas industries. So they are close allies.
So why am I right to be confused if these are like mathematical problems that are
all of this is confusing? Yes.
Yeah, Trump is kissing up to Qatar. Qatar is kissing up to Trump.
Right.
But is that like the serpent trying to get his goal?
I'm wondering about that. See, to me, my first thought, if I was a paranoid person, would be to think, this is weird. Why are you giving me an airplane, a fancy tricked out airplane? Because he said he wants one. He wanted to upgrade because he doesn't like anything shabby. It has to have a golden toilet.
Boeing is working as we speak on new Air Force Ones, and Air Force One is a military airplane.
Oh, I know, and it has to be.
It doesn't matter what it's painted like on the outside.
I know.
It's impervious to rockets. It's got
I know.
The nuclear
I know that
situation.
Right, yeah, but he doesn't care about that. But he's all about putting gold everywhere and shitting in a golden toilet. He's all about the way things look. He wants to look fancy and important. That's a narcissistic thing. My mom is the same way.
Impatient to wait for the one that's being built right now.
Right, exactly. So they're giving him this fancy one right now. And he's like, why can't I just take that one? I like that one. It's fancy. Yeah. And to me, my first thought was, well, that's a perfect way to kill him. Get him to take this $400 billion plane. And then Iran can there's a bug in the system. It can just explode or can hit a mountain somewhere. They could take control of the plane and kill him.
Yeah. They can surveil the inner workings of government.
They could do that too.
They're in the room, and
they could do that as well.
That for compromise.
Right. I mean, I'm sure that that's a given. They're going to do that, right? So, in order for him to take that plane, they would have to sweep it, clean it, change it. It would cost like hundreds of billions.
I heard some experts talking about it the other day. They said it has thousands of miles of wiring, and every square inch has to be checked. It would take years to verify that it was safe. That he would be better off just waiting and getting the new plane. So there's more to this than just they're giving him a fancy airplane.
I know.
Either trying to mesmerize him with stuff.
I think they're trying to kill him.
Well,
I really do.
Oh, I'm not arguing with you. I'm just saying that's a long list of things that might be happening. That's one of them. And there's nothing good on the list.
No, I think they're trying to kill him. I think they're using his own greed and ego against him. They're using, look, he's an impediment. So I think he's a pawn. I think he's a pawn
No. I know.
Yeah, he's a pawn. Okay, he's a pawn of, he is a pawn being used to kind of blow up our whole thing. So we are no longer an empire.
Correct.
And, enabling all of these sort of evil empires to go kind of wild in the world, which is the Middle Eastern empires, China, Russia. Get rid of.
Best case scenario in all of this is China is able to come out as a stabilizing force. That's the best case scenario.
I don't think they're going to do that. I don't think they're going to do that.
You mean they're willingly not going to do, intentionally not going to do it, or are not going to be capable of doing it?
Oh, I don't think they want to do that. I don't think they're going to want to do that. I think that I kind of don't want to say this because I think it's too scary. But
there's only so much fear a person can feel, beyond which there is no more.
Well, I don't know. I don't know. I don't have a feeling that I think that this is a chess game being played and he's playing Scrabble, like baby Scrabble, or like he's playing Candyland and they're playing fifth dimensional chess against him. And I think at a certain point, these guys who are really truly evil, intelligent, manipulative, controlled people, and he's like a big toddler who just, has he wants. He's also older. And I mean, frankly, the other thing I always think of that's really odd, besides the parallel, things he's not like with Hitler had an ideology. Hitler was also a younger man who had, an idea that he was going to remake the world. What is Trump? I mean, Trump is going to be 80 soon, right? How old is he? 79 this year or 80?
Something like that. Yeah.
It's like he's coming to that end point. And even though he's a narcissist and doesn't want to admit it, some part of him knows he only has so much more time, maybe 20 years, maybe 30 years if he's lucky. But he's at the winter of his life. He's not in the, spring of it. So, what is he really ultimately going to get out of this? I think that's why he's trying to just kind of gobble up as much goodies as he possibly can, because I think that's the only reason he's doing it. He doesn't have an ideology. He doesn't have a purpose. He's being played, he is basically constructed to be a bomb in the American democracy, to take us out of the international scene so that we cannot continue to be the police force that stops authoritarianism. Right?
That's right. That's 100% correct. I agree with you entirely. And the tragedy of the whole thing is that he has no ideology. He is like a piece of grass blowing in the wind. It's whoever whispers in his ear and offers him the biggest grift of the moment.
Right, exactly. And then he'll turn on you too. So the thing is, the whole thing going on in Ukraine and Russia is not going to stop because Trump wants him to. Putin is playing him, and Trump is not going to be able to play Putin.
Well, apparently they're on the phone this morning.
I mean, look, I'm sure Putin is smart enough to go, oh, okay, Trump, I'll listen to you but as somebody else said, I think it was somebody who had been an ambassador to Russia. It was a woman. I can't remember her name. I saw an interview with her this weekend briefly. And she was like, he might stop temporarily, but as soon as he secures a peace, as soon as Trump's not looking, it's just going to start up again.
He's going to get a second wind and
he's going to continue. He wants to reorganize. He wants to have, it doesn't matter how many people it costs. It doesn't matter anything. He wants the Russian Empire back, and he's not going to stop. And so if Trump becomes, I think, too inconvenient and too difficult and not a good enough chess piece anymore, he will be killed. That's what I think. I think somebody will take him out. And I kind of wonder if maybe, Trump doesn't seem to get any of this. He's kind of dumb. He doesn't understand how he's being played, I don't think. I honestly think he doesn't understand it. I think he really thinks these guys are his buddies and they love him and they think he's great.
Well, there's that very toxic, that malignant sense of he's brilliant, he's
right, he's so special,
right.
So he can't acknowledge that he's being played and that he's a dum-dum, because that would collapse his ego, so he buys into it, and that's where he's really vulnerable. Because and my first thought when he was given that plane was, they must be finding him to be difficult right now. Like, they must be at the point where they're feeling like, we want to have a way to kind of just get him out of the way. If he if he pushes back on us, or if he decides, well, we gave him all this money, but he's still not going to do what we want. Because think about what's going on with Putin and him. And he's trying to look like the big man who's going to solve the peace problem between,
500% tariffs.
Right. And all these crazy things he's doing that's kind of disruptive and trying to take all the attention and kind of like, creating problems for China, creating problems for other countries. And he doesn't seem to care. You can't talk him into anything. And I think they're starting to realize, well, I think, he could turn on them. Look, anybody he's partnered with has ended up being thrown under the bus. And that's not going to stop.
Well, I'm
with
not
Putin or anyone else.
advocating anything, but I'm just making an observation. I'm actually surprised that they would want to do it in such an obvious way. I would think something more.
Oh, I think it was obvious for a reason. They want to make him look, they want him to look corrupt. They're trying, this is to me a Trojan horse, not just like with the bugging and everything like that. This is clearly a way to show the American people what he really is. So they're doing it to humiliate him, I think. I don't think it's I really do.
No, I agree with you. He's just too stupid to even recognize it.
He's too dumb. He doesn't get it.
Yeah.
He's too unsophisticated.
Well, I mean, he's dumb, yes. But it's also, as well, it's that he's too pathologically in love with his own superiority.
And pathologically in love with shiny objects like a magpie. Yeah. I mean, he's so easy to manipulate. If you have enough money, you can get him to do anything. Okay,
well, speaking of enough money, you sent me a little article that I couldn't watch because I don't get Instagram. I don't.
Oh, right. I don't know
the correct verb. I don't have Instagram. I don't know.
Patricia gave it to me. She sent it to me, so I just that's how long. Yeah.
Mark Zuckerberg building a compound underground in Hawaii with nuclear-proof doors. What's that?
Well, okay, there you go. And somebody was like, "Does he know something?" I mean, look.
Yeah.
He probably does. I mean, and he probably is listening to chatter, and he probably is. My brother used to say when Facebook had no ads and had no, like, it was non-commercial and just gathering information. He's like, they must be selling this information to the government. They must be keeping tabs on people because how else are they making money? I'm like, they probably do have some kind of deal with the government, to filter information. Right. Well, they don't openly say that. So obviously, you can also read the room and see that things are getting very unstable very quickly. So, you don't have to be psychic or in the know just to look around you and go, this is, India, Pakistan, Israel, more shit's going down there. China, Taiwan, Ukraine and Russia. Come on.
And we don't talk about Africa a lot.
I know, but the Sudan is horrifying. It's horrifying.
Not a monolith either. There are like whack-a-mole situations all over Africa that are absolutely hideous humanitarian nightmares.
Yes, totally.
Now, I don't know enough about it to say a whole lot more about it, just that every time I pick up the paper and read about Africa, it's all bad. Oh,
it's always bad.
Except if you're a white South Africaner.
Oh, right. But then you're going to come here because you're being persecuted.
Oh, my God. I couldn't believe that. Do you think any of them are related to Elon?
Probably not. It's maybe some, but I think it's just because, I don't know, because Elon Musk was trying to start a white state. Yeah, he's total racist. He is such a massive race. Trump is too. Yeah, they're just totally racist. Completely, 100% racist and misogynistic.
Do you remember the Charlottesville march with the tiki torches? Remember the good old days when that was shocking? That's how far we've come. What is it?
I know.
8 years ago?
Yeah, about 8 years ago. Yeah.
And that's kind of the thing I was talking about earlier, that incremental chipping away at all sorts of norms and traditions and attitudes. And who did I hear yesterday talking about? Somebody was talking about, God, maybe you told me this. a person who made the comment that I don't really care what happens to other people as long as my family is okay. I'm good with that. They were asked a question about tormenting immigrants, and they said, I don't really care about that. If my family's okay, then I don't care.
That's
fine, upstanding white Christian American. I know. It's terrifying.
It's ironic because I feel like I'm a billion times more Christian than any Christian. You know what I mean?
We always land on this part of the conversation.
We do.
It's dominating culture, and I'm not sure that people fully comprehend how destructive it is, in the name of Jesus, by the way.
Right. I mean, what I'm saying is what Jesus spoke about, what his platform was. I'm totally on board with that. I'm not on board with the church in any way, or any variation of Christian churches, because I think they're totally corrupted and evil, frankly. I mean, we have a history of being imperialistic, violent, war causing death, causing institutions, Well,
I was telling you earlier, I will confess publicly, bless me, Father, for I've sinned. I actually tried to be optimistic about the new Pope.
I tried.
And it goes against every grain of my character. I am Eeyore all the way to the core. But I do listen to people. And when people tell me that I'm being too pessimistic, I try to rein it in. And I allowed myself to feel a sense of optimism about the new Pope. And there are still some things. But here was an opportunity. Here was his chance in his first big, gigantic I am the Pope speech to take a strong stand from day one. And right. I am not a believer anymore in incremental positive change. Positive change has to be all out from day one.
I agree.
Your effort all of the time, publicly.
Yep.
And I think of Mallory McMurrow. I've been covering her book. And when they accused her, she was defending trans students and the right to use the bathroom. And on the floor of the Michigan Senate, she was accused by one of the women who was a Christian that she was grooming children. And that was it. That was her limit. And she came out and made this really impassioned speech. What you're doing is wrong. This is what I am. This is what I'm supporting. And you're the least from Christian that I've ever seen. The Pope needs to do that. He needs to grow a backbone. He needs to not waffle. So why I'm upset about him, he came out and said, Pope affirms that family is based on a union between man and woman. Now, granted, I've been having this debate with friends of ours. Granted, he did not say anything negative about the LGBTQ community. He didn't actually say anything proactive against taking away marriage equity. But right. The last time he said anything was in 2012 when he called it the homosexual lifestyle. And I guess you guys are welcome to join us in the church, but it's really a man and a woman. So we'll tolerate you and we'll try to change your mind because essentially we believe you're a perversion. That's what's going on here.
Well, I mean, he's almost 70 years old and his brother's MAGA. He probably doesn't come from a very enlightened background.
I'm 71 and I won't tell you how many of my siblings have gone over to the dark side. Okay.
I know, but I'm not saying it's an excuse, but the other thing is, I just think all institutionalized, organized religions are just control systems. And maybe he has his, a connection spiritually to this thing and he's really believes in it or whatever. But, anytime people put absolute definition around something that is way too big and mysterious for us to understand, no matter where it comes from, like, science can't really understand it. Religion can't. We're just not capable of understanding we're not even close to getting to understand the complexities of the multiverse. What is consciousness? What's God? we have ideas, we have theories, we have philosophies, we have religious beliefs. But if you are absolutist about it, I think then you're probably delusional, is what I think. You're just delusional. And you think a book that was written 2,000 years ago, by a bunch of people who lived in the desert, there's nothing wrong with that, but those are their ideas. That's their legends and stories and fairy tales and myths and, some guys, so what? I mean, you know what I mean?
They voted on what to leave in, what
I know. And anytime you have an absolute kind of, it's just like in life. Whenever you think you know something kind of comes at you and goes, oh, wow, I need to evolve that. If you confine yourself completely and you think that this is literal, there's a heaven, there's a hell, there's a devil, there's a God, and it was this war, and you have all these really literal kind of imaginary fairy tales playing out, it's no different than being, a really hyper religious person during the Roman period where you would think, well, Jupiter and Juno are, you know what I'm saying? They're out there, I mean, it's not real. And it's a metaphor. And I think anybody who is drawn to become the head of an institution that is, all about very absolutist ideas and ways of being, it's not going to be that open-minded. Do you know what I mean?
Well, I look at the
Oh, wait, you just went cuckoo. Your voice. What happened there?
My voice is cuckoo?
Yeah. Yeah.
I beg your pardon.
Your voice has just gone weird.
Yeah,
I think it's your mic. Yeah, it's your mic, I think.
Let me see what I can do. Hang on.
I mean, I don't think, I'll let you mess with that, but I don't necessarily think it's bad intentioned or that he's a bad person or that people that do that are bad. It's limiting, and it's not going to enable you to really be open-minded or see the truth of things. It's going to blind you to a lot of things and cut you off from growth, I think.
Well, the institution of marriage is a control system.
Well, yeah, it's definitely started
in service of the patriarchy.
Well, yeah, that's not entirely true, but you know what? You need to fix your thing still. Is there can you plug in a different microphone or something maybe?
Well, theoretically, but it would take me 2 hours to figure it out.
Do you have another microphone?
I have to reinstall an app to get it to.
Okay, well, you're gonna have to work on that later. But in other cultures, it depends on the culture, or but there's often hand fastings and partnerships that happen. They're not usually so confined like ours.
I'm talking about
right.
Yeah.
No, that is definitely about owning a woman so you can have progeny, so that you can carry on your lineage. That's what that's about.
Oh, keep your claws into your possessions.
That's right. Women are treated like chattel, and possession is definitely that.
Well, you want to keep stuff in the family.
Well, you want to, if you're going to have a farm and you're going to have all this bounty, and you're going to want to have somebody to give it back, continue on your legacy. You can't do that if you're a dude without a lady. You got to own yourself a lady who can receive your seed and carry it on for you.
Gross.
It's true.
It's so funny. I can hear myself. It's bizarre.
It sounds crazy, right? Yeah.
Yeah. We're possessed.
Weird.
Yeah. Well,
I don't know.
It's a sign from God. Maybe we're done.
Maybe. It's weird though, because this happened. Remember, were you there last week? No, you weren't on the Cosmic Fold last week, were you? You weren't there.
I was busy having, fun.
Right. This happened on the Cosmic Fold. They were, everybody went like that except for me. Everybody's voices did exact same thing. And at the time there was a fire going on in their environment, in the area. So we thought maybe it had something to do with, that messing up the internet. Is there anything like that going on around where you live? Or?
No, but we had a bad windstorm yesterday, and Tim and I were going to record. And we couldn't. The whole thing was just jacked
Okay.
up. I don't know what's going on. Yeah.
It's probably something like that happening with your internet. So maybe you could, it may not be at all related to your microphone. It might be just an internet problem. Like
Yeah,
you don't,
I think so,
internet
because
might be kind of unstable or something.
I recorded something earlier by myself and it was fine.
Yeah, it's probably something like that. It'll come back to normal in a little bit. It just, yeah. Oh, well, yeah, I guess we should just call it because it's not going to work probably best. But that's okay. An hour is plenty of time. We'll do this again next week.
Oh my God, only an hour, Denise.
I know, it's like almost a normal amount of time. Yeah.
Okay, well, I'm glad we talked about this stuff. I mean, there's an endless supply of controversy.
There always is. Yes.
That word that starts with F and it's never mind. But an Uri, E-R-Y at the end. Never mind.
I can't understand what you're saying, but that's okay.
That's okay.
It's hard to understand. Yeah.
Yeah, don't worry about it.
You only make out every once in a while the words. Sometimes it's like it kind of real fuzzy. Like I can't really hear what you're saying exactly, like what you're saying.
Yeah, you sound like the demons are coming in.
Do I?
A little bit, yeah.
Oh.
Maybe they are. I don't know. All right. All
right. So I sound weird too. I sound weird as well as you do then. We both sound weird.
Bad, I don't think. But
okay.
You sound gravelly and
Okay.
Yeah, weird. So who knows?
Yeah.
Thanks.
Well, thank you. It was fun talking to you.
Thank you everybody for watching, and we'll be back. You can't get rid of us that easily.
No, we'll be back. All right. Bye-bye, everybody. Lots of love.